Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 220 of Show Fever. Today we'll be going over the 2026 movie Obsession. Now, I know everyone's heard of this movie by now. It's probably the most renowned movie of the year, almost. Well, it's either that or The Backrooms. I honestly have to say Obsession is more renowned than The Backrooms at this point. But yeah, so I guess for trying just to lay out how this review will be going. Now, it will be more of a review. I'll predominantly be focusing on like hype points of the movie because just describing the story of Obsession would be kind of boring, I see. However, if we discuss like the larger plot points and like that, I believe it'll be more entertaining. So I'm gonna kind of do that. But yeah, so Obsession, essentially what happens is this dude by the name of Bear, aka Baron, which is his actual name, ends up wishing on this one little device called a One Wish Willow that Nikki, who is one of the female of the main cast, we see there's four predominant characters: Ian, Sarah, Nikki, and Baron. And we see that he wishes with all well, that Nikki loves him with all her heart, essentially more than anyone in the world. And this ends up leading down to a not role, but like a path of obsession, where we see as Nikki does just this. The wish is fulfilled, and we see also that this wish is technically only fulfilled through the possession of Nikki. We see as she is actually taken by another individual, not necessarily another individual, but another being something within her, because we actually see as it swaps between the real her and the being within her multiple times. So yeah, ultimately this ruse is going on. There's a bunch of chicanery and shenanigans that happen along with it. One of the first things we see is that restaurant scene, which you probably all seen by now, where she ends up standing up because she's been lying about her father having cancer after she got the obsession, or I guess the demon possession with the obsession. I don't know, but yeah. And she starts freaking out at the restaurant. And that's the thing about this movie. This movie, I would personally say it's not scary. Now there is a scary point. I'd probably say the most, I guess, disturbed I was okay. So there's this one point where after this restaurant scene, we see as she gets up in the middle of the night. She's scaring Baron. She's doing a bunch of creepy crap, and we see at one point she gets in a corner and she goes, "I don't think you love me like I do." And it's just how she portrays it, and that fake cry, and also her face at the same time, because her face doesn't really fit her emotions there. So it's very scary, and it's unsettling. However, the rest of this movie, the points at which they were trying to be scary, I just didn't feel like they hit. So, like for instance, uh, the props are kind of the big thing that I saw a problem with, because we do see like Baron's cat dies early on. You can obviously tell that is a horrible prop. It does not look anything like a real cat would in such a circumstance. And also one of the other moments, probably the only other significant moment where I saw that it was obviously a prop, was when Sarah dies, because at some point we see as Baron and Sarah ultimately end up meeting up, because Sarah wants to be a tattoo artist, and they're reading her final her final, I guess, offer to a tattoo school. And after this, we see they're kind of talking about it, but the obsession has already set in very deeply for Nikki here, and we see she tracks him down and bursts the window through with a brick and starts slamming Sarah's head down. And this scene honestly got me laughing a little bit because of how the horn is honking each time she slams her head against the brick on the window. It goes, burr, 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 burr. I don't know, but once we see as her head is pulled back, you can obviously tell that the head is a prop. Like, it's super easy to tell, and I wasn't a massive fan of that. But yeah, like the scary parts in this movie, I always just felt that they either like made you have secondhand embarrassment or were just kind of funny. Now, there's this one scene where we see as Nikki, they're at a party and they're all having a time, and we see as the obsession is making things very awkward here, and it's making Nikki act very weirdly. However, we see at some point during this party, she actually swaps back into the actual Nikki form. She starts to freak out. She grabs the glass ball and starts trying to bust it on her head. However, she ultimately ends up swapping back, and we see she starts making a bunch of weird faces and go, I just thought that was goofy. Like, I don't know what it was. It just got me laughing. Like, this movie's not bad. Like, I mean, it's probably, I'd say it's in my top three favorite horror movies of all time. I'd probably be Hereditary, then Sinister, and then Obsession in third. But yeah, so I know that's very bland. I haven't watched a lot of horror movies, so that might be the reason why. But like, I've watched the big stuff, like your Halloweens, your Conjurings, and obviously other things that I mentioned. But yeah, so I like this movie predominantly because of the comedy factor in a lot of it. And there's like multiple points. There's one point where that was kind of cool. Is we see as Baron is kind of being confronted by Nikki for a time because he's trying to go out and do his own thing. He's trying to do normal human things, but because of Nikki's obsession, she's not really allowing him to do it. And we see at one point as it's been a moment since I watched the movie. It's been like actually almost a week now. But we see at one point as she's like kind of struggling. We see as she stands like for a second, and then she runs, like jolts, runs at him real quick, but then she walks slowly backwards. It's a very like almost jump scare-esque scene. However, it isn't really scary. It's kind of a cool way it's done because the actor who plays Nikki makes it very convincing. Now, Nikki's actor in this movie is probably the best actor of the entire movie because she does a phenomenal job portraying this, I guess, obsessed individual, but also portraying someone who has two souls conflicting within them, essentially. But yeah, so I guess I don't know what I really want to talk about next because there are other scenes. Like, okay, for instance, I'll kind of talk about the end here. So at the end, we see as Baron is desperate to break the wish. He ends up going back to the store, and he gets explained about the One Wish Willow about how he has to die for his wish to end, or he has to get someone to make a wish that will contradict his. And we see as he ends up going to Ian with it, and he's like, "Yo, I need you to wish against me." But ultimately, Ian ends up wishing for $1 billion, ends up breaking the thing, and $1 billion physical dollars start raining from the air, which is kind of goofy. That had me laughing too. And then we see as he ends up heading back, and Nikki has fully coated herself in Sarah's blood, marked on herself to make replicate Sarah's tattoos, put Sarah's clothes on after having killed her because she believes that Baron will love her if she's like Sarah, because Sarah has had a crush on Baron throughout this entire thing. And if Baron legit just would have went with Sarah at the beginning of the movie, none of this would happen. It could have been easily avoided, but no, he had to have Nikki. Baron is the villain of this movie, by the way, and it's very blatant. But yeah, so we see this, and we see Sarah's corpses in the house, and it's very obviously a mannequin. And we kind of see there's this confrontation here, and this gets very brutal between Nikki and Baron. And then we see as Ian pulls up, because he's like, "Dude, bro, you got $1 billion." And Nikki has a gun on Baron at this point. And once Ian walks through, she quick draws on this dude and shoots him in the face. Like, it was crazy. I love that scene. It had me laughing, because of how quick she just went, bam! Like, almost as soon as he walked in the house. He didn't get like a full sentence out, I don't believe. But yeah, so that scene really had me laughing. But one thing I did really like is the conclusion. So we see here as they ultimately end up getting everything figured out, and Baron says, "Yo," as they're laying together with all the corpses in the house, we see as Baron's like, "Yo, I gotta go use the bathroom." And we see as he ends up going to the bathroom, where he is going to try and escape the obsession. And we see as he attempts to kill himself. And with this, we see he's unable to go through with it. We see, in fact, that he wants this wish to continue going on, because at one point, before Baron goes to see Sarah later at the night, before these final events, we see that Nikki ends up breaking through again. She just begs Baron to kill her, and she does not want to be with Baron, but Baron won't. Baron will not allow her to escape this hell that she's been placed in. And here we see, as he goes to kill himself to break this curse, however, he won't do it. He won't go through with it. He won't break this perpetual hell that he's put on someone. Because we see as he plans on doing it, then he's unable to. I can't remember the first way that he attempted to do it. Oh yeah, he was going to blow his head off with the gun he took from Nikki. He's unable to do it. Then we see as he tries to take a bunch of pills in his cabinet, he goes to gag himself. However, in this time, we've heard as Nikki is trying to convince Baron to come out so that she can once again be with him and keep him from killing himself. But she is doing this through saying, I want to separate, I don't want to be together anymore, and stuff like that. She's felt like she's lying. And then ultimately she remembers what was mentioned about the One Wish Willow, and she uses it herself. She snaps it and wishes Baron to love her. Well, we don't actually get to hear the wish, but we can presume it's for Baron to love her as much as she loves him. And in this, we see as Baron goes to gag himself, before he's able to gag himself, the wish kicks in, and his soul is essentially cut off, and then he is forced to take the actions to go embrace Nikki. And because of this, he ends up dying because he's unable to gag himself and allow Nikki to remain in the perpetual hell that she's been placed in by him. And so he ends up dying here in her arms, and then Nikki's soul ends up waking up with all three friends in her friend group dead around her. That was a cool scene. I loved that. I loved how Baron got what he deserved. He, messing with wishes and messing with people's fates, ultimately ended up getting him killed because he would not allow someone to escape from something they did not wish to be in. Baron is a villain. Baron wants something that someone else does not want. He is, to put it blatantly, he's a partaker in SA and stuff like that, because he's unconsensually doing this stuff to Nikki. He's unconsensually participating. It's essentially if you have someone drugged, essentially like that, and still partake in stuff with them. It's very foul. So yeah, Baron is absolutely a villain in this movie, and I don't really like him. He's weird. He's odd. He doesn't know how to talk with people, really. He's just very peculiar. Now, also, once I just thought of this after that kind of grim tone there, another thing that made me laugh was we see at one point as Baron ends up going into work, even though once he was planning to go to work, the door was all taped and he had to like break that down the tape and all that. So he ends up going to work, and Nikki had a lunch pack for him. And when I saw this lunch pack, I was like, there's got to be something suspicious with that. So we see as he ends up going to work, and he's talking with Sarah and all that. They're yapping it up about the college that the tattoo school that Sarah's trying to get into and all that. How about she on her last chance with Luther, and how everything else got rejected. And we see as they're talking about the prospects of her doing actual tattoo art here in the future. And we see as Baron's like, you know what, I'm going to bring it to me. I'm going to give me a little bit of a morsel, give me a little bit of a snack here. So he ends up breaking into his sandwich, and he bites it. And we see as Sarah snatches a little note that's on it from her. And it mentions something about a cat. Well, you know that dead cat I mentioned earlier on in the movie? Nikki cooked it and put it in his sandwich for some reason. And he gets to notice, and he's like, oh, he starts freaking out. He starts vomiting, and I knew something was wrong with it. And I kind of, when I saw the sandwich, I was like, there's got to be something in that sandwich, and it was cat. But yeah, I love that scene. It was so goofy. But yeah, so because I don't know why Nikki was messing with the cat or any kind of thing. We see at one point early on that she like puts it on this like memorial platter, like it's not diced up or anything, but it's just like laying out like a memoriam of some sort with candles around it and all that. So yeah, it was just super goofy. Like I said, this movie made me laugh more than it made me disturbed. And like honestly, I don't like it more than the Backrooms. I really enjoyed the Backrooms movie. The Backrooms movie gave me a lot more to think about. It was more, I guess, ambiguous and less cut and dry. And I really enjoy an ambiguous movie because it makes you think. It makes it linger with you. And if a movie doesn't really make me think, it's not going to really stick in my memory. So I believe I'll most likely remember the movie of The Backrooms more than I will Obsession. And I mean, I guess it's kind of best to compare these because they're both made by YouTubers, which is very cool. It's very commendable because both these movies are great and they deserve to be recognized as they have been. But I do feel as if The Backrooms is better than Obsession, but that's just my personal opinion. Like, if I were to give Obsession a rating, like I'd give it a solid 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Like, it's a good movie, but it's just like nothing crazy. I mean, also that's probably because of how I've read the story of the Monkey's Paw, and this story is obviously at least pretty derivative, or at least very similar of the story of the Monkey's Paw, because someone wishes for something and it essentially becomes too true, like it follows through with the wish too close of a T, and it ends up backfiring for them. So, and both stories end up ending with the death of the wish bearer or the wish creator and all of that. And it does end up concluding with the wishes all being broken when someone's just left in absolute desolation, just like the Monkey's Paw story. So I believe I can't remember exactly what his name is, but I believe the director of this movie was heavily inspired by the Monkey's Paw story. So yeah, I just kind of found it a little bit too derivative, but also it is still its own individual story. That's not to undermine. Like I said, it is still a very solid movie, and you need to go watch it because it is one of the best horror movies of modern history, or modern, I guess, cinema. But yeah. So that's all I really have to say about Obsession. That's all I really have for episode 220 of Shelf Review. So thank you very much for watching.